setup and other things, that those slides are available in detail, which we will discuss here, and I shall definitely mention the specifications available in IES specification. Now, first of all, in the said IES specification, it is mentioned that the sphere gap is a peak voltage measuring device. The sphere gap is a peak voltage measuring device, but not any sphere, but those spheres which are made in accordance with the specifications mentioned in that IES specification, that is 1876. Those spheres, if used for measurement of voltages, they will always measure the peak value of the voltage. Now here, one thing should automatically one thing automatically comes in our mind: why sphere gap is a peak voltage measuring device. The thing is this: actually, if you just consider the sphere gap, let us go to the diagram. Any sphere gap, if you consider, for example, suppose this sphere gap. This sphere gap, if you consider, in the circuit, when we shall discuss the circuit diagram, you will see that between the two spheres, one will be connected to live end of the supply and the other will be connected to ground. So a potential will appear across this gap, and according to the magnitude of the gap and the magnitude of the applied voltage, a specific or a definite value of electric field will be created in the gap. Now, if in the gap, the resultant or developed electric field exceeds the dielectric strength of air, which is 30 kb peak per centimeter, then the air within the gap will ionize, and we can say that the sphere gap has broken. Now the thing is this: actually, the electric field, if you look, or if you think about the unit of electric field, it is kV per centimeter or kV per millimeter or volts per centimeter, volts per millimeter, etc. That is, dimensionally, if you check, electric field intensity is nothing but the ratio between the voltage and gap distance, right? Therefore, for parallel plate capacitor, where the field is uniform, E is equal to simply V by D. For other electrode configurations, obviously, it is not simply V by D, but it is V by D multiplied by some factor, and that particular factor is dependent upon the geometry of the electrode configuration, etc., etc. But basically, dimensionally, whatever may be the shape of the electrodes doesn't matter. Whether the field is uniform or non-uniform doesn't matter. E is basically D by D, dimensionally at least. Now, if that be the case, then for a fixed value of gap distance, where D is specified for this, for example, the sphere that is being shown over here, if the gap distance or the distance between the two spheres, that distance remains fixed, then we are talking about AC voltage application. Now, if we apply AC across this gap, obviously the maximum stress or field will occur when the AC waveform, voltage waveform, will reach its peak value. That is, the maximum stress will occur when the voltage passes through its peak value, and that is the reason why the probability of breakdown is highest at the peak. Is that point clear to you all? Why sphere gap method is a peak voltage measuring device?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay. Next point, which is mentioned in that particular IS specification, that is standard spheres. Standard spheres are those which are manufactured according to the specifications of this IS standard, and to be more specific, they have definite diameters, definite dimensions. I mean, arbitrarily any dimension. I mean, any sphere with any arbitrary dimension cannot be considered as standard sphere. They must have definite diameter and definite gap distance between them. Such spheres are called your standard spheres. Now, again, another thing, in addition to the standard sphere, peak voltage measuring device, etc., some other parameters or some other points are also mentioned in the IS specification, in that said IS specification, that we shall discuss afterwards. But prior to that, I tell you the first slide, this one. This is the circuit diagram which is used in our laboratory to perform this experiment. We shall explain this circuit diagram, but I will request you to have a look on the major components or major equipments used in this circuit diagram, or in this circuit rather. This is the automatic voltage regulator. This is a iron core auto transformer. This is the high voltage transformer. These are the two capacitors. This is a resistance but made up of water. This is water resistance. Why it is water resistance, that we shall again explain. And digital RMS volt multimeter is this one, where we measure the voltage, and this is the sphere gap arrangement. Now, one thing I should say here, that using sphere gap is a standard peak voltage measuring device. Therefore, for any standard sphere and its gap distance, what will be the breakdown voltage at STP, standard temperature and pressure? That is also mentioned in the IS 1876. So, if that is available in the IS specification, what is the role, or why we are using this digital RMS multimeter, which also measures the same voltage? That is just to have a cross check whether the value specified in the IS that is correct or incorrect. In order to cross check that, we are using this digital RMS multimeter, which measures the same voltage. What is the operating principle? We shall discuss. Now, again, you just have a look, clearly have a look how these equipments in practice look like. So very quickly we shall move through different slides which will show you actually the different components as it is arranged in our laboratory. So these are the major sections we have seen just now from the in the circuit diagram. This is the AVR, this is the AC meter, these are the voltage control switches. All these things are there inside the control room. This is the high voltage transformer, and this is auto transformer, this is water resistance, and this is the measuring sphere. Now, practically, the different components, they look like this one. This is the control room. Actually, the control room will look like this, and major sections will look like this. This is the automatic voltage regulator installed in our high voltage laboratory. It looks like this. This is the diagram of automatic voltage regulator. Then this is the auto transformer, iron core auto transformer. It has 5 tappings starting from 100 up to 500. Normally, the 300 volts tapping is used. There is no specific reason, because this 300 volt tapping is used because that serves our purpose. The voltage which is required, that is sufficient when we use 300 volt tapping, etc. So this is the auto transformer, diagram of auto transformer. Next is, this is the main high voltage transformer. Practically, this is the bushing of the high voltage transformer, and this is the core of the high voltage transformer. I mean, this is the tank inside which the windings are placed. It is oil immerse transformer. So this is your high voltage transformer, and this is the water resistance. This one is the water resistance. Actually, this is a bakelite tube hermetically sealed on either end, and inside which distilled water is there. Now, distilled water, you know, is purely, I mean, pure insulator, but within that distilled water, if we mix adequate amount of salt or some other impurity, its ohmic value can be controlled. Here we follow that particular purpose. Why water resistance is used, we shall discuss. We shall discuss definitely. This is the measuring unit. Here we have two capacitances. This is one. This below there is another capacitance, from which we measure the voltage. Here across the lower capacitor we connect the measuring device, digital multimeter, and this is the sphere gap we were discussing, or we have seen. This is the sphere gap we use in our experiment. Now again, going back to the major circuit, main circuit diagram and IS specification, you see that if you look at the IS specification, you will see, for example, this is the scanned copy of one page of the IS specification, 1876-2005. Here you see in this table, this column specifies the gap distances like 0.8 centimeter, 0.9 centimeter, 1 centimeter, etc. And these columns actually specifies the breakdown voltages of standard spheres, and the values on this row, like 2, 5, 6.5, 10, 12.5, etc., they are the diameter of the standard spheres. Therefore, if you consider this value, 15 centimeter diameter sphere and 1 centimeter gap distance, at standard temperature and pressure, the breakdown voltage, AC breakdown voltage peak value will be 31.7 kV peak. Okay, is that okay?
Yes.
Do you understand what is the table specifies actually? Huh?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now again, going back to the circuit diagram, here what really happens, from the automatic voltage regulator, where the supply is three-phase AC, using that automatic voltage regulator, the input voltage to the variac is controlled. Now, depending upon the input voltage of the variac, the output voltage of the variac will also vary, and accordingly, this, LT side of the transformer, a high voltage testing transformer, will be energized. Now, depending upon the value of the high voltage, depending upon the value of the voltage on the LT side of the high voltage testing transformer, we shall get a definite output voltage on the high tension or high voltage side of the testing transformer. Now, again, you see on the high voltage side of the testing transformer, two capacitors are connected in series. One is C1 having a value of 63 picofarad, and the other one is C2 10,000 picofarad. Now, the thing is this, again, both these capacitors are connected across an AC source because we have AC voltage on the secondary or HT side of the transformer. Therefore, from that voltage, both the capacitors will be charged. Now, up to which value of the voltage these two capacitors will be charged? Suppose the value of the voltage here on the transformer, I mean, at this end of the transformer is V RMS, V kV RMS. Then C1 and C2, my question is, up to which voltage level, I mean, not exactly the magnitude, but around or approximately up to which voltage level both C1 and C2 will be charged? Can anybody tell me?
So V root 2 into
Yes,
the
V into root 2 kV peak. Because we know that when we connect a capacitance across MEIC supply, the capacitor is charged to the peak value of the AC supply. So both C1 and C2, they will be charged to the peak value, will be charged to a potential which is proportional to the peak value of the supply of the voltage appearing at the end of the transformer. Is that point clear? Is that point clear?
yes sir.
Okay. Now again, both C1 and C2 being in series, same charging current will flow through both of them. Agreed?
Yes.
Agreed? Now, the capacitive reactance of C1 is equal to 1 by 2 pi f into 63, and for C2 it is 1 by 2 pi f into 10 to the power 5. So capacitive reactance will be much higher or greater for C1 than C2. Agreed?
Yes sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So maximum voltage drop will take place at around the capacitance C1, and a small value of the voltage will take place or will be dropped across C2. Is that okay?
Yes, sir.
Fine. Now, if this meter placed over here is calibrated in such a way that it measures this low voltage, but its scale is calibrated in such a way that measuring this low voltage, it can predict the peak value of the voltage appearing here, then it is possible to measure a very low voltage but predict the peak voltage appearing here, because both C1 and C2, both these capacitors are charged to a potential which is proportional to the peak value of the voltage appearing here at the end of the transformer. So is it possible to measure a very low value which is being dropped across the capacitor C2 and predict the voltage appearing here, peak value of the voltage appearing here? Is that possible? What do you think?
Yes, sir. If you multiply with the correction factor.
Yeah, that is done internally. because this multimeter will be used for this purpose only. Actually, I tell you, the exact circuit diagram or the exact circuit which is used in laboratory is slightly different from this one. I do not know whether we shall get any scope to discuss that particular circuit. If possible, I shall try to give you the exact circuit with explanatory notes. Otherwise, what you are telling, the basic principle is like this: with adequate factors, if you include appropriate factors, I should say, appropriate factors, then it is possible to calibrate the scale of this particular meter in such a way that it will basically measure the low value that is being dropped across the capacitor C2 and predict the peak value of the voltage appearing at this transformer. And that is being done, and the purpose of doing this is because the voltage that appears across the sphere gaps, across these two sphere gaps, will cause a breakdown. And if we know the diameter and the gap distance of this particular sphere gap, then it is possible to find out that voltage from IS 1876. Just now, sometime back, we have seen for standard diameter of sphere with standard gap distance, what should be the value of the breakdown voltage that is mentioned in that 1876 IS, and that is also at STP. So it is possible to have those values from IS specification and compare those values with the measured values by this digital RMS multimeter. But there is a problem that the values that we get from the IS, they are peak values, and also they are at STP. But the value that we get here is the RMS value, and at not at STP, but at present atmospheric condition. So we have to either convert the values mentioned in the IS specification into RMS, and it has to be referred to current atmospheric condition. Alternatively, we can convert the measured value by the RMS multimeter to peak value and refer it to the STP. Either of the ways can be done. But whatever we do doesn't matter. After converting one of the values, we get an opportunity to compare the two values and find out how much accurate is the values mentioned in the IS specification. Is that okay? Our objective?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes.
then. Now, few more points. That is, in IS specification, it is mentioned that along in series with the high voltage sphere, here these are the two spheres. One is grounded and the other is connected to high voltage supply. It is mentioned that in series with the high voltage sphere, a high resistance of magnitude lying within the range 100 kilo ohm to 1 mega ohm must be connected in series, and that resistance must be connected in series in order to do two things. In order to avoid the pitting of the spheres. What is pitting? Now, or pitting of the spheres in the case of short circuit. I'm sorry. That is, in other words, in order to restrict the high current when in the two spheres are shorted in the event of breaking down or ionization of air between the two spheres. And also, there should be some high resistance in the circuit in order to damp out the superimposed oscillations, high frequency oscillations which occur or which appear in the system in the event of breakdown of the gap. Now let me explain two things. Now had there been no resistance here, then the HT supply from the end of the transformer would have been connected directly to the high voltage sphere, and in the event of occurrence of arc short circuiting the two sphere, then high voltage would have been directly connected to ground, creating a deadly situation, dead short circuit in the system, and huge current would have been flowing all through the equipments, and there would have, I mean, the chance of getting damage of all such equipments would have been much prominent or much higher. In order to restrict the flow of, or in order to restrict the flow of high value of current when the two, when arc strikes between the two spheres, that is ionization or breakdown of air occurs between the two spheres, in order to restrict the current flowing through the circuit, what all we have to do, we have to put a certain value of high resistance in the circuit, and that is mentioned in the IS. The value should be within 100 kilo ohm to 1 mega. In our case, in our laboratory, it is 180 kilo ohm, and the resistance is made up of pure distilled water with adequate amount of salt or impurity inside, in order to control the ohmic value of the water. And this water is placed in a bakelite tube which is hermetically sealed. Now, the question that comes in mind is why water is used. Now, what else we could do? We had two other alternatives. Either we could use carbon resistances, as it is done in the case of solid state circuits, but a single piece of carbon resistance of value 180 kilo ohm is not always readily available. Then we could made a series parallel units of resistances, and the value of the unit could have been 180 kilo ohm, but the reliability of these resistances in power circuits is not very good. They are prone to frequent failure, and in the event of failure of a single such resistance, all other resistance would have been subjected to higher voltages, and series of failures can occur. So that is why carbon resistances are not used. On the contrary, we could go for wear wound resistances, but nichrome or other wear wound resistances you have used in your laboratory classes in the form of rheostat and others. If you remember, for making a 100 ohm resistance or rheostat, the length of the unit is almost 1 foot, or even more. Now, if we use the same material for manufacturing 180 kilo ohm resistance, the size of the resistance will be huge and may not be accommodated in our high voltage laboratory itself. That is why we have to go for distilled water. We had to go for distilled water, and we used adequate amount of salt and impurity so that the ohmic value can be controlled. Is the point clear? Why water resistance? Why water actually? Is the point clear?
Yes, sir.
Now again, another purpose of damping superimposed oscillations here, in the event of short circuit, I mean when arc strikes between the two spheres, you see there is a dead short circuit, and it is not the what should I say, normal operating condition. There is a transient phenomena when it has been found that due to formation of high frequency oscillations develop in the system and they superimpose with the normal power frequency voltages and make the voltage of the system even higher. In order to prevent that, you must damp out the oscillations, and this circuit is basically an LC circuit, as you see. In order to damp out, the LC circuit is basically oscillatory in nature. If you want to damp out those oscillations, you must have resistance, high resistance in your circuit. That purpose is also performed by this high resistance. Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay. Now, next, what is done is practically in this experiment, a 15 centimeter diameter sphere is used. And this 15 centimeter diameter sphere is used, and it is set for 6 different gap distances: 0.5, 1, 1.5, 2, 2.4, 3. These are the 6 gap distances at which the sphere gap, these are the 6 gap distances which are set for the 15 centimeter diameter spheres, and for each gap distance, the sphere, 3 voltages are applied across the sphere so that 3 breakdown occurs at each gap distance. And the mean value of the breakdown voltage is recorded, and corresponding digital RMS multimeter reading is also noted. So we have 6 different voltages, 6 voltages corresponding to 6 gap distances obtained from the IS specification, and 6 different readings recorded from this multimeter. Now, what all we have to do? We have to convert them, as we said, taking into account the factors which we shall discuss, ambient conditions, etc., and either referring it to RMS or peak. Then we have to compare the two values. Considering the values of mentioned in the IS specification as standard, then we have to find out the percentage error in measurement for each gap distance. That is RMS, value from IS minus the value of obtained from the meter reading divided by the value of IS into 100, percentage error. And finally, we have to plot it in a graph paper, that is in y-axis. You have to plot the percentage error, and in the x-axis you have to plot the gap distance, and we obtain 6 points on the graph paper, and these 6 points are joined using straight lines. No smooth curve is drawn. In that way, a calibration curve is drawn. That is done in the experiment. Now, few more points needs to be explained, but before that, I take a 5 minutes break. You just recapitulate or think what we have discussed so far. If you have any questions, when I come back, you may ask me the question. 5 minutes back. Gap. Now let us resume. If you have any question, you may ask me.
Sir, how will the arc extinguish?
The moment it is, the moment arc strikes, automatically you will see, you will, visually it is possible to see, and also you will get a sound. Once it happens, we do not increase the voltage further from the variac or the AVR, we just bring the voltage down. Once again, it is increased from zero value to occur the second arc, to form or to voltage is increased just to create or develop the second arc in the graph. Any other question?
So instead of water resistance, can we use relay over there?
Relay will not serve the purpose of damping out the oscillations. Neither the relay will be able to restrict the current. It may cut the circuit down, but once again, if it cuts the or puts the circuit off, again you have to make it on and so on. That is why relay is not used.
Okay.
Next, a few more points about this experiment. In the said IES specification, it has been mentioned that, as you know, the arc strikes between the two spheres, and that is due to the development of high electric field. And due to the development of high electric field, it has been found or that always in atmosphere there are few free charge particles, mostly electrons, which are when subjected to high electric field, they get accelerated, gaining kinetic energy from the field, and these accelerated electrons colliding with neutral atoms dislodge further electrons in the space between the two spheres. And this process is a cumulative process, and when the number of electrons and positive ions becomes sufficiently large within the gap, then it is said that avalanche has set in the gap and the gap has ionized or broken down. But for the formation of arc, it is necessary that when the voltage passes through its peak value, an initiating electron should be present in the gap. Otherwise, no arc will strike. Arc will strike at much higher value of voltage. Therefore, in the IS specification, it has been mentioned that under two definite conditions, you must make some arrangement so that presence of electron within the gap is ensured, and the process is said irradiation, irradiating the gap. What does it mean by the term irradiation? It means you have to supply electron externally. There are many ways. One such way is you may put UV capsules within the gap, or even you can have a third electrode firing arrangement. Your high voltage class, Professor Dalai is taking, I think, that part during impulse generator, etc. He must have discussed the triggertron gap firing and all these things. Has he discussed that part? Triggertron gap firing, etc. Third electrode firing.
Yes, sir.
So that is done in order to ensure the existence of a free electron or initiating electron in the gap at the time of application of voltage. But in IS specification 1876, two conditions have been mentioned, particularly where this irradiation is necessary. The first condition is this. When you want to measure any voltage whose magnitude is 50 kV peak or less, then you have to irradiate the gap, whatever may be the diameter of the sphere. And second condition is this. When you use spheres with diameter 12.5 centimeter or less, you have to irradiate the gap, whatever may be the voltage. I repeat the two conditions. First condition is when you want to measure the voltage, the magnitude of which is 50 kV peak or less, whatever may be the sphere diameter. And second condition is you have when you use spheres with 12.5 centimeter diameter or less, whatever may be the voltage. Why these two conditions? Let us explain. Actually, in order to explain the first point, you see 50 kV peak or less, when the magnitude is decreasing from 50 kV to the lower values, obviously, if you keep the gap distance fixed, then the resulting electric field within the gap will decrease, the magnitude of the electric field will decrease, and if that decreases, then the chance of development of discharge may decrease, because we know the breakdown strength of air at STP is 30 kV peak per centimeter. So if you reduce the voltage keeping the gap distance fixed, then it may so happen the resulting electric field within the gap may go below the dielectric strength of air. In such a case, there will be no breakdown. So you have, in order to ensure breakdown, you have to reduce the gap distance accordingly with the reduction in applied voltage. And if you reduce the gap distance, then the gap becomes smaller, and the probability of existence of a free electron within a small gap is also less. That is why irradiation is required. In order to explain the second point, that is when the diameter is 12.5 centimeter or less, you have to irradiate the gap. Again, we refer the value, tables, the particular table we have seen here. These values, if you see carefully, you see there are values, breakdown voltages. Some values are normally written, but some values have been put within bracket. Now these values, as it is mentioned in the IS, actually these values are having an accuracy of within plus minus 3%. Provided accuracy is within plus minus 3%, provided the gap distance is less than or equal to 0.5 D. Less than or 0.5 D. In the case up to that, the values mentioned in the tables have plus minus 3% of accuracy. Within the limit, within the range 0.5 D to 0.75 D, the values provided in the table are of doubtful accuracy, and that is why the values are placed within bracket. For example, for a 2 centimeter diameter sphere, up to 1 centimeter gap distance, you see all the values have been written straight away. But whenever the gap distance is 1.2, which is more than 0.5, the value is 35.1, but it is put within bracket. Also, that is same thing has been done in the case of gap distance 1.4. Is that point clear about accuracy plus minus 3%?
Yes.
Now coming back to irradiation once again. When the diameter is 12.5 centimeter or less, In order not to sacrifice the accuracy, you have to reduce the gap distance. And when the diameter is decreasing, gap distance will also decrease. As a result, the gap will become smaller, and once again the probability of existence of a free electron in a small gap will be less. That is why irradiation is necessary. So these are the few relevant points which we must take a note while using the sphere gap method. Now again, two more things we need to discuss. One is the mounting arrangement of the sphere, and the third one is how to calculate the correction factors. This is the mounting arrangement of the sphere. You just have a careful look on the arrangement. Is it clearly visible, or should I slightly increase the figure?
No, sir, it's visible.
Visible. So one is the insulating support to which the spheres are mounted in horizontal position. There could be two types of sphere gaps, horizontal and vertical. We use normally the horizontal sphere gaps as it is shown in the figure, and you see 2 is the operating, 2 is the sphere shank, and 3 is the operating gear. Using 2 and 3, normally the gap distance between the two spheres, which is specified by S, is adjusted. And 4 is the high voltage resistance in series with the not high voltage resistance, it is the high resistance in series with the high voltage sphere. In our case, it is water resistance. P is the sparking point. Sparking point means what? Actually, two spheres, they being, the sphere, they are having curved surfaces. So there is a point, between, on the two spheres, there will be 2 points. The distance between these 2 points will be minimum, and maximum stress is supposed to occur between these 2 points or around these 2 points, and it is expected that the arc will strike around these 2 points. Now again, A is a dimension that is written over here, that it is the height of P, that is clearance of the sparking point of the live sphere from ground. In the IS specification, actually the two dimension, two values of A is mentioned. One is the minimum value of A, and the other is maximum value of A. Why two values? Actually, it is expected that the field lines emerging out from the live sphere should terminate on the earth sphere. But if the live sphere is placed very close to physical ground or earth, then many of the field lines will be deviated to the physical ground instead of terminating on the grounded sphere. That is not desirable. That is why you have to keep a certain distance, at least a minimum distance from ground, so that field lines coming out from the live sphere terminate on the earth sphere. But why the maximum dimension? Because this experiment is done in laboratories, but if you indiscriminately increase the ground clearance, what you will do, or what will result is, you will gradually reach very close to the roof, which is also at ground potential. So you have to maintain a minimum distance from ground, also a maximum distance from ground. These are the two dimensions. Next is B. B is a radius, a circle drawn with radius B, with the center at P on the live sphere and no external structure. No external structure should pass or come within this distance b from p. Now, why that happen? Why this space should be free from entry of any external structure? Actually, again, the external structure, if you do not restrict their entry, we may have some live connections, we may have some grounded object. Now, all these objects will actually hamper or affect the field distribution between the two spheres. Some of the fields lines, if the object is Earth object, may be deviated towards the Earth object. If the object is live object, then the field lines of that live object may affect the field distribution within the two gaps. So there should be a space which should be free from any external structure. Similarly, item 4, there is a plane X considered within B, and it is advised that item 4, that is high voltage connection with series resistance, must not pass through this plane within a distance B from P. That is, once again, the high voltage connection is having its own field lines around it. So if you just allow the high voltage connections to incline itself in the other direction, as it has been shown by this line showing B, then what will happen? The field lines of this item will affect the field lines of this in between the two spheres. That is why it should not be allowed to pass through this plane within a distance P from P. Is the point clear? Is there any question about mounting arrangement? You tell me.
Sir, can you please repeat the last part? Why
Last
that
part-
item 4 should not?
Yes, item 4 is actually, it is high voltage connection, na? So around any high voltage line, electric fields are created. So if you allow the high voltage connection to pass through pass through very close proximity of the two spheres, then the high voltage, electric field due to high voltage lines will also affect the field configuration between the two spheres, and which is not desirable. If that happens, that will give us erroneous result. That is why a safe distance is always maintained while connecting the high voltage high resistance to the high voltage sphere. This is the reason. Is that okay now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so last thing we shall discuss, that is how to calculate the correction factors. This is the way we can calculate the correction factor. Here U0 is the voltage at normal condition and U is the voltage at present atmospheric condition. It is therefore U0 is equal to U by delta into K, or we can write that is voltage at current atmospheric condition U is equal to voltage at normal atmospheric condition U0 into delta into K, where delta is the air density correction factor that is calculated as it is shown in equation 3, B by B0 into 273 plus T0 by 273 plus T, where B0 is the barometric pressure at 76, that is standard pressure 76 millimeter of mercury, and T0 is the standard ambient temperature, that is 20 degrees centigrade, and B is the current barometric pressure, and T is the current temperature reading. Using this, we can find out delta, and K is calculated using this relationship. K is equal to 1 plus 0.002 into H by delta minus 8.5. Now, delta we can find out from here. In order to find out H, we have, that is absolute humidity in gram per meter cube. we have to take readings of both dry bulb and wet bulb thermometers, and then we have to use another curve which gives you the reading of absolute humidity in gram per meter cube, that is H, corresponding to the particular readings of dry bulb and wet bulb thermometer. Now, these are the diagrams for finding out the dry bulb thermometer reading and wet bulb thermometer reading. This arrangement we have in our lab. This is the device for measuring the pressure. And now, this is the curve which I was talking about. Now, here you see there is this is the curve. There is a curve like this. Now, the inclined lines from these curves actually give you the readings of wet bulb thermometer. And the vertical lines, these vertical lines, they actually represent the readings of dry bulb thermometer. Now, for a particular reading of dry and wet bulb thermometers, what all you have to do? You have to find out the point of intersection for the dry and wet bulb thermometer readings on a day, and from that point of intersection you have to move horizontally so as to meet this particular axis, which is the axis that specifies the value of the absolute humidity in gram per meter cube, that is H in our equation 2. So, is that clear how we can find out H?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Sir, we will get only one reading from the dry bulb thermometer. We have to take two readings from dry bulb and wet bulb thermometer.
No. You have to take reading of wet bulb thermometer as well as dry bulb thermometer. And from those two readings, suppose wet bulb thermometer reading is, say, let me zoom it. Suppose wet bulb thermometer and both wet and dry bulb thermometers are 20 degree. Then this is the 20 degree wet bulb thermometer reading line, inclined line, and this is the 20 degree dry bulb thermometer reading. Their intersection will be at this point. From this point, you have to move horizontally and meet this axis. There, where you meet from that point, you find out the value of absolute humidity in gram per meter cube. Is that clear now, H?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Sir, but we will get two values of H.
No.
One for wet bulb and one for...
No. Once again, I repeat. You will read one dry bulb thermometer reading and one wet bulb thermometer reading. So you have to use both of them. As I said, if the wet bulb thermometer reading is, say, 20 and dry bulb thermometer reading is, say, 30, then what all you have to do? You have to find the point where wet bulb thermometer reading 20 and dry bulb thermometer reading 30, these two lines intersect. So this is the 20 line and this is the 30 line for dry bulb thermometer reading. They intersect at this point. So after finding out their intersection point, you have to move horizontally to meet the vertical axis showing the absolute humidity in gram per meter cube. So you will get only one value corresponding to today's dry and wet bulb thermometer reading.
Okay.
You have okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Then I think there is one sample calculation. You see, These are the ways by which it can be calculated. It is dry bulb thermometer reading is 32 degrees centigrade. So if you use and barometric pressure is 756 millimeter of mercury. So using equation 3, you can find out B is equal to 756, B0 is equal to 760, 273 plus 20, that is 290, plus divided by 273 plus T is equal to 32. You put these values and find out what do you get. হ্যাঁ আজকে যাব না গো, না বলতে পারছি না, ক্লাস নিচ্ছি। কেন, কি হয়েছে? কালকে পারবো কিনা জানি না, পরশু দিন চেষ্টা করব। যদি কালকে পারি তাহলে, কালকে পারবো না ভাই, মুশকিল আছে। তাহলে একটু মানে আগে বললে আমি আজকে যেতাম হয়তো, কিন্তু এখন তো ক্লাস নিচ্ছি, আমি তো আজকে এইসব শেষ করে কখন যেতে পারবো না, শরীরটাও ভালো নেই। আর যদি কাউকে দিয়ে পাঠাতে পারো, মানে ওই সজলদা যদি নিয়ে আসেন আজকে বাড়িতে, সজলদা গেছেন কি? আসেননি? ঠিক আছে, দেখছি আমি কাল যদি পারি যাব, কারণ কালকে আমার অন্য কাজ আছে, তারপর দেখছি। আর যদি শরীর ভালো না, শরীর ভালো নেই, ক্লাস নিয়ে আমি আর পারবো না। হ্যাঁ, তাহলে ভ্যালুটা পাওয়া গেল। Could you find out the value of delta corresponding to a pressure of 756 millimeter of mercury and temperature of 32 degrees centigrade? কি বের করতে পেরেছো না? না হ্যালো, somebody should respond.
No, sir.
কি পারা যাচ্ছে না? আচ্ছা আমি বলছি তো, করো না। ভিটা তো 756, so 756 divided by 760 করলে আসছে 0.9947, that multiplied by 293 divided by 273 plus 32, that is 305. .956 সেটাই এখানে দেখানো আছে, দেখো এইভাবে, তাহলে আমার ডেল্টা হয়ে গেল। এই যে এখানে দেখানো আছে ডেল্টা 0.9556, এরপরে একটা কে বের করেছে, এইচটা বের করেছে। এইচ এর ভ্যালুটা 29 গ্রাম পার মিটার কিউব বের করেছে। সেখানে ওয়েট বাল্ব থার্মোমিটার রিডিংটা কত ধরেছিল? ওয়েট বাল্ব থার্মোমিটার হচ্ছে 30, তাহলে আর ড্রাই বাল্ব থার্মোমিটার রিডিং 32। তাহলে ওই ফিগারটাতে যাও, এই ফিগারটায় 30 আর 32, 30 এইটা, একে যদি একটু বড় করা যায়, দেখো এইটা হচ্ছে 30 লাইনটাকে ভার্টিক্যালি মুভ করাও। 32টা কোথায় আছে? এইটা 30, এটা 32, এটা 34, এটা 36, এটা 38। তাহলে এইটা যদি 32 হয়, তাহলে 30 আর 32 ইন্টারসেক্ট যেখানে করবে, এইখান থেকে হরাইজন্টালি মুভ করো। এটা 35, সরি 38 না, তাহলে 30, 31, 32, 30 আর 32 মিট করছে এরম জায়গায়, সেখান থেকে গিয়ে তোমার এখানে গেলে কত হচ্ছে সেটা বের করো। এইখান থেকে এই যেটা বেরোয় সেটা হচ্ছে 29 গ্রাম পার মিটার কিউব। এগেন ওই ফিগারটা থেকে দেখো নিজেরা বের করতে পারছো কিনা, 30 আর 32, এইটা ড্রাই বাল্ব থার্মোমিটার রিডিং, ওয়েট বাল্ব থার্মোমিটার রিডিং। যাই হোক, এখান থেকে একটু যদি অসুবিধা হয় ছেড়ে দাও। এটা তো 20 আর এটা 35, তাহলে 30টা কোন জায়গায় হবে সেটা দেখো, করে করতে হবে। এনিওয়ে, ফর এক্সাম্পল, ইউ অ্যাকসেপ্ট for the time being, you just accept the value is 29 গ্রাম পার মিটার কিউব। সেটা যদি হয় তাহলে তুমি দেখো ডেল্টাটা তোমরা বের করেছো, ওই ফিগারটা কার্ভটা হাতের কাছে থাকলে এটা বের করাও কোনো অসুবিধা নেই। তাহলে এইখানে if you put the values here, h and delta, h 29 and delta is equal to 0.9556, you can find out the value of k, calculate the value of k, কত হচ্ছে দেখো, find out the value of k।
1.04.
এখানে দেখো k is equal to 1.04। এগেন তাহলে ইউটা কি, ইউটা হচ্ছে আজকের কন্ডিশনে যে ভ্যালু, দ্যাট ইজ u0 ইন্টু ডেল্টা ইন্টু কে। এবার u0টা কোথা থেকে পাওয়া গেল, এই যে তোমার দেখো 15 সেন্টিমিটার ডায়ামিটার স্ফিয়ারের জন্য 1 যদি গ্যাপ ডিস্টেন্স হয়, ভ্যালু ইজ 31.7, ইউ সি। ওকে, এই তো টেবল, দিস টেবল স্পেসিফাইজ the value at STP for a 15 centimeter diameter sphere with a gap distance 1 will be 31.7 kV peak. Therefore, this value when corrected to current atmospheric condition will become 31.7 into 0.9556 into 1.044, that is 31.62 kV peak. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Next experimental table, you see gap distance 1, u0 31.7, u is 31.62. It has to be converted to RMS value. If you divide it by √2, it will be 22.36. And similarly here, as we said, for each gap distance there will be 3 breakdowns. These are the 3 readings, reading 1, reading 2, reading 3, and this is the mean value, which is at current atmospheric condition and RMS value. Then you find out the percentage error like this. Is that okay?
Yes, sir.
This is the calibration curve which you have to finally plot. Okay?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
And just 2 more diagrams. How the gap distances etc. are adjusted using this caliper. You have to measure the gap distance, then using this within the sphere you have to set the gap distances. That's all. So I stop here now. If you have any question, you may ask me. Now you tell me whether you need this recording of today's class to be sent to you or not.
Yes, sir. Sent it.
Okay, I'll do. No problem. Okay then. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.